My parents lied to everyone. They stole money from the whole family to fund their secret, and I, an 18-year-old girl, was the one paying the price for it every single day. But the night I ran away changed everything. I wish I could say I ran because of one final straw, one clearly defined moment when I said, "That's it." But the truth is uglier than that. It was years of being chipped away until nothing felt like mine. Not my time, not my space, not even my identity. I was 6 when my little sister Isla was born. I still remember the pink balloons, the cupcakes, the way my dad hoisted me into the air and called me the world's best big sister. I believed it. I believed them. But within months, the warmth in our home had turned into something sterile and cold, like a hospital waiting room. And I started disappearing, first from their attention, then from their hearts. It started subtly. I was moved from my brightly painted bedroom upstairs to the dusty storage room near the garage. Isla needed a sensory-controlled environment, they said, so they painted her room in calming blues and filled it with expensive equipment, things I had never seen before and wouldn't be allowed to touch. My room smelled like mildew, the air thin and still, like no one was meant to live in it. At night, I'd hear them upstairs, talking softly, playing music for Isla, sometimes laughing, and I would pull the covers over my head to muffle the silence around me. I told myself it would pass, that things would go back to how they were, but they never did. My toys disappeared next, slowly, a doll here, a set of markers there. I'd find them later, shredded or soaking in the bathtub. Once, I cried when I found the teddy bear my grandmother had given me, ripped at the seams, stuffing everywhere. My mother snapped. "She doesn't know any better. She's autistic, Callie. Stop being dramatic." That was the first time I felt real anger, not at Isla, but at my mom for not even pretending to care. I tried to speak up. I remember sitting at the kitchen table one afternoon with my math book unopened, trying to find the words. "Mom, it really hurts when she breaks my stuff. I don't think it's fair." But she cut me off. "Fair? You want to talk about fair? Try living in Isla's body for a day and see how fair the world feels to her." I never brought it up again. The older Isla got, the more I disappeared. I was expected to help feed her, change her, calm her during her meltdowns. At school, I watched the other kids go home to snacks and cartoons and playdates, while I went home to therapies, tantrums, and the constant reminder that I had to be the strong one. The school laptop they gave me, my one lifeline to something personal, was obliterated in less than a week. Isla dumped apple juice into the keyboard. When I came crying to my parents, they didn't ask how I felt. My dad told me I was irresponsible. My mom grounded me for not putting it somewhere safe. That night, I curled up on the floor of my storage room and whispered apologies to myself for being born in the wrong order. But the worst wasn't even the chores or the blame or the isolation. It was how they began speaking about me, as if I were an adult trapped in a teenager's body. I became help, not a daughter. I was assigned roles, responsibilities, and later, expectations. One night, I overheard my parents talking through the thin drywall that separated their bedroom from Isla's. My name came up. I leaned closer. I wish I hadn't. "She's going to have to understand eventually," my dad said. "It's not like we'll live forever. Callie will need to take over." "I know," my mom sighed. "We just have to keep her on the right path, keep her focused." I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling and tried to picture the future they had planned for me. A future where my life would be an extension of Isla's, her shadow, her crutch, her keeper. It wasn't even a question for them. It was a decision made behind closed doors, written in stone without my consent. From that moment on, I began to unravel. The unraveling wasn't loud or dramatic at first. It was quiet, subtle, like a thread being tugged slowly from the edge of a sweater until the whole thing starts falling apart without anyone noticing. I started pulling away, skipping meals, locking my door, spending hours just staring at the ceiling. My teachers noticed something was wrong, but I lied easily. Just tired, just stressed. That's the thing about becoming invisible. After a while, people stopped looking closely. My breaking point didn't come with a scream. It came with Spider-Man. It was a Friday afternoon. My friend Evan had been pestering me for weeks about seeing the new movie. You need a break, he'd say. Come on, just one night. I resisted. I always did. But this time, something in me cracked. I needed to breathe. I needed to feel like a teenager, not a nurse in a teenager's hoodie. So I made the decision. I was going. Just 2 hours. 2 hours where I didn't exist for anyone else but me. I turned off my phone before the previews even started. It was glorious. I laughed, I cried, I forgot who I was for a while. I forgot the weight pressing into my shoulders every waking second. But when I walked out of the theater and turned my phone back on, it was like stepping into a war zone. 13 missed calls, dozens of texts. Call me now. Where are you? We needed you. My stomach dropped. I called home, and the second my mom answered, she unleashed a fury I didn't know she had in her. Where the hell have you been? Isla had a meltdown and you just disappear? What kind of daughter does that? I tried to explain, tried to say I just needed 2 hours, but she didn't care. The words rolled over her like water off a windshield. By the time I got home, my dad was waiting in the kitchen, arms crossed, face like stone. You chose a damn movie over your family? He snapped. What the hell is wrong with you? I just wanted a break, I whispered. Well, tough, he barked. This isn't a life where you get breaks. That's when I said it, loudly, sharply. I'm not her therapist. I'm not her nurse. I'm your daughter too. Silence. Then, not when you act like this, my mother hissed. You're selfish, Callie. You're disgusting. I went to my room and slammed the door. I cried until my chest physically hurt. My head throbbed, and I couldn't tell if it was from the crying or the suffocating rage. That night, I decided I was done apologizing for needing space to exist. The next week, something unexpected happened. I was selected to give a speech at the school's upcoming youth recognition ceremony. It was an honor, one I hadn't dared hope for. When I told my parents, they nodded absent-mindedly, eyes glued to Isla, who was lining up blocks in perfect rows on the living room carpet. I'd really like it if you both came, I said. It's important to me. We'll see, my mom muttered. Depends on how Isla is that day. I didn't expect much, but I hoped. God, I hoped. I spent the next week writing that speech like my life depended on it. It wasn't just about school. It was about me, my struggle, my fight to be seen. The night of the event, I stood on stage in front of 100 people. I scanned the crowd, eyes searching, just for one familiar face, one nod, one smile. But my parents weren't there. Later, I learned that Isla had a tantrum. They couldn't leave her like that. And just like that, my moment was erased. I delivered the speech anyway. My voice shook, my knees trembled, but I did it. And afterward, people clapped and told me I was brave. I smiled. Then I went to the bathroom and threw up. On the walk home, I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. Not just for that night, but for all the nights, all the moments I had begged, quietly, silently, to matter, and all the times I hadn't. There's a type of heartbreak that doesn't shatter you all at once. It corrodes you, like acid slowly eating through steel. I thought the night of the speech was my rock bottom, but I was wrong. That came later, in our living room, with a laugh that wasn't meant to hurt, but carved a hole so deep I still haven't filled it. It started innocently enough. For once, my dad sat down with me to look at college brochures. I could hardly believe it. He asked questions. What are you thinking of studying? Do you want to stay in state? I felt my heart flutter, like maybe I was finally being seen. I'm thinking psychology, I said, cautiously, or creative writing, maybe both. He nodded, flipping through a catalog. Nice, he said, but if you're smart, pick something high-paying. You're gonna need it. Someone has to take care of Isla when we're gone, right? He laughed. I didn't. I stared at him, frozen. That laugh, so casual, so cruel, burned into my chest like a brand. I felt everything I'd ever swallowed start to rise, boiling in my throat. The forgotten birthday parties, the broken toys, the missed speech, the constant silence, all of it. You think that's funny? I said. My dad's eyes narrowed. Callie, no, I snapped. You think my entire life is just a savings plan for your mistakes? He blinked. What are you talking about? You've built a life where Isla gets everything and I get what's left. You use the college talk to remind me I don't have a future of my own, just a future of cleaning up after yours? That got their attention. My mom stormed in from the kitchen, wiping her hands with a towel, eyes sharp. Watch your tone. I lost it. I gave up my entire childhood for her. My friends? Gone. My hobbies? Forgotten. I haven't had a normal teenage experience in years. And every time I try to do something for myself, you both act like I'm betraying her. You think your sister asked for this? My mom shrieked. Do you think she wanted to be born like this? That's not what I'm saying, I screamed. I'm saying you never gave me a choice. You handed me her care like it was my God-given duty and called it being a good sister. But I'm not her mother. I'm not her nurse. I'm your daughter, and I'm drowning. They didn't speak, not even a breath. My dad just sat there, eyes empty. My mom's lips pressed together in a thin, bitter line. Neither of them moved when I ran to my room and slammed the door. And you know what? They never came after me. I stayed locked in that room for hours, then a whole night, then 2. No one knocked, no one called. And in that silence, I realized something horrible. I could vanish, and it would be more convenient for them, because then they'd only have one child to focus on. By the 3rd day of silence, I stopped hoping they'd knock on my door. I started making plans. Not escape, not at first, just space. I needed clarity. I needed to remember what my own voice sounded like when it wasn't echoing through the hollow walls of guilt and responsibility. And when I thought about where I'd feel safest, only one name came to mind: Grandpa Wade. He lived 3 towns over, in a quiet house near the woods. We hadn't been super close over the years, mostly because my parents never made the effort to visit, but I remembered the summer I spent with him when I was 10. It was the only summer I ever felt free. I didn't pack much, just the essentials: a backpack, my journal, some clothes, my birth certificate and social security card tucked deep beneath it all. At 3 a.m., I slipped out through the side door, heart pounding with every creak of the floorboards. I left a note behind, short and cold. I'm safe. I need time. Please don't try to find me. I took the last bus out and arrived just as the sun was rising. I hadn't told Grandpa I was coming, not until I was already outside his door. I texted him, "It's Callie. I need a place to stay. Please don't call my parents." He answered within seconds. Doors open. He didn't ask why, didn't interrogate me. He just brewed coffee and pointed toward the guest room. "Sleep," he said, "then we'll talk." And when we did talk, it shattered something in both of us. I told him everything, from the moment Isla was born, to the Spider-Man fight, to the speech they missed, to the college conversation that ripped me open. He sat there silently, his face growing darker and darker, not with confusion, but with anger. Then I told him the worst part: how my parents had been taking money from the rest of the family under the claim they were hiring a professional caregiver for Isla, a caregiver who, in truth, had never existed. Grandpa's expression didn't just harden, it transformed. "They told me they had someone," he muttered, fists clenched on the table. "I've been giving them $600 a month for years." I stared at him, stunned. "You too?" He stood up and paced the kitchen, trembling, not with age, but fury. That money was supposed to be for Isla's care, not to trap you. He called it theft, fraud, a betrayal. He said things I won't repeat here. But the fire in his voice, calm, steady Grandpa Wade, who always wore slippers and smelt like peppermint, was terrifying. "I should have checked," he whispered. "I should have visited more. I'm sorry, Callie. I let this happen." That afternoon, he made phone calls, lots of them, to my aunt in Oregon, to my cousin Julian, to Uncle Marco. And with every call, another lie unraveled. My parents had told every branch of the family the same thing: that a professional caretaker was helping, that I was living a balanced, healthy life, that the money was strictly for Isla's therapy and developmental needs. But none of it was true. They'd lied to everyone. And the rest of the family was furious. The next few days were a whirlwind. I stayed tucked away in Grandpa's house while phones buzzed and relatives argued and truths exploded. There were tears, shouting matches over speakerphone, promises of legal action. My cousin Julian even offered to call Child Protective Services. Grandpa told me not to contact my parents until he'd spoken to them himself. He wanted to be there for it. He said I didn't have to face them alone again. And for the first time in a long time, I felt safe. I slept through the night. I ate without guilt. I laughed, really laughed, while watching some dumb comedy with Grandpa. I started browsing college programs again, this time based on what I wanted, not what my parents expected. For the first time in years, I felt like the future wasn't a prison. It was a door I could walk through. But nothing stays calm forever, especially not when secrets like mine start crawling into the light. The call happened on a Saturday night. Grandpa sat in his armchair, phone pressed to his ear, one hand gripping the side table like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. I couldn't hear what my parents were saying on the other end, but I heard Grandpa's voice, and I'll never forget the way it shifted. "You used her, Monica," he said. "You built your life on her back and expected her to smile through it." Pause. "No, don't you dare spin this like she misunderstood anything. You lied to me. You lied to the entire family. About the money, about Isla's care, about everything." I saw his hand tremble as he gritted his teeth. "You better pray I don't decide to press charges." He ended the call without saying goodbye. He sat in silence for a long time afterward, staring at nothing, jaw tight. Finally, he looked at me. "They want to talk to you," he said. I shook my head immediately. "I don't." I told them they'd have to do it here, in front of me, Sunday night, but it's up to you. I didn't sleep much the night before. I kept playing out the scenarios in my head. Would they yell, cry, apologize? I didn't know what to expect, and part of me still stupidly hoped it would end with a hug. It didn't. They arrived late. My dad walked in first, his face unreadable. My mom followed, holding Isla's jacket even though Isla wasn't with them. She didn't look at me. Not really. The moment we sat down, the air turned to ice. "We didn't know you felt this way," my mother said, arms folded. Her voice was clipped, defensive. "You did know," I said, quietly. "You just didn't care." My dad rolled his eyes. "You're blowing this out of proportion." That was it. That was the phrase that detonated the last piece of me. "I raised your daughter," I hissed. "I gave up my friends, my childhood, my sanity, while you collected sympathy checks from family members you lied to. And I'm the one blowing it out of proportion?" They went quiet. For a second, I thought maybe they'd say something real. Instead, my dad leaned forward and said something I'll never forget. "You were born to do this. You're her sister. That's your job." My breath caught. I couldn't feel my fingers. I couldn't feel anything. Grandpa stood. "That's enough." But I wasn't done. "You lied to everyone. You took money meant for Isla's care and used it to build a fantasy where I didn't exist. You treated me like property. And now you sit here and act like this is some overreaction?" My mom opens her mouth, but Grandpa raised his hand. "No more lies," he said. "You've said enough." They left soon after. No apology, no tears, just silence and the slammed door. The second they were gone, I broke down. Not just from sadness, from grief. I realized in that moment that my parents, at least the version I'd clung to in my head, were gone. Maybe they'd never really been there at all. And when the sobs finally faded, I did the one thing I'd been too afraid to do for years. I told Grandpa I wasn't going back. He didn't hesitate. "Then you stay here. As long as you need, as long as you want." The decision was made, but it didn't feel real until the boxes came out. Grandpa and Uncle Marco arrived early Monday morning, cardboard crates in the back of Marco's rusted pickup, ready to help me move out, for good. I didn't expect it to feel like a funeral, but it did. Not for a person, for the life I was leaving behind, a life that never truly felt like mine. We pulled up to my old house around noon. The sky was overcast, the driveway empty. I half expected someone to come running out, to yell at me, stop me. But no one did, not at first. Dad wasn't home. Mom was. She hovered in the hallway like a ghost, arms crossed, lips tight. She didn't say a word as we started packing up my room, if you could even call it that. It had always felt more like a storage unit for a stranger. I didn't take much. Clothes, journals, a few books, the laptop I bought secondhand after Isla destroyed the first one. I went into the basement to grab the stuffed bear I'd repaired a dozen times, the one she'd torn open when I was 7. It wasn't about the bear. It was about taking something that hadn't been stolen or shattered. When I walked back upstairs, Mom was standing at the door, blocking our path. "You're really doing this?" she asked. Her voice cracked, but not from emotion, from disbelief. Like I was the one abandoning her. "I already did," I said, gently pushing past her. As I stepped onto the porch, she finally broke. Her voice shrieked behind me, sharp and cutting. "We sacrificed everything for Isla. You think you're the only one who lost something?" I turned around. She was trembling, her face was blotchy. And suddenly, she didn't look like a villain. She looked like a terrified woman trying to hold together a life built on lies. "I don't blame you for Isla," I said. "I blame you for choosing her at the cost of me." Her mouth opened, then closed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry, Callie." I nodded, but I didn't say it back, because sorry doesn't rebuild someone. It doesn't undo years of silence and guilt and being expected to smile while drowning. We drove off in silence. I watched my childhood home disappear in the rearview mirror, knowing I wouldn't be back, not in the same way. That night, I sat on the bed in Grandpa's guest room and opened the first college application I'd ever filled out without someone else's dream pressing on my chest. I clicked through programs, literature, counseling, journalism, and I felt something I hadn't felt since before Isla was born: hope. It was a quiet hope, raw, fragile, but it was mine. The next day, Aunt Jen called me. Her voice was tight. "I found out your dad was still asking for the family contributions," she said. "Told me the caregiver needed new training." He was lying. Again. I sighed. I figured. "I'm not sending him another dime," she snapped. "From now on, the money I was giving him, it's going to you. For school. For whatever you need." I tried to protest, but she shut me down. "No more of this taking care of Isla is everyone's job crap. You've done enough." I hung up and cried again. But this time, it was relief, gratitude, the kind of tears that come when someone finally says, "You matter, you deserve more." You'd think that finally getting out would feel like an escape, like freedom bursting through the gates. And in some ways, it did. But there's a strange grief that follows you when you leave everything you knew behind, even when what you knew was a prison. Living with Grandpa wasn't just calmer, it was healing. He didn't hover. He didn't demand explanations. He just let me be. Some mornings we'd eat breakfast together in silence, then go our separate ways. Other days we'd sit and talk for hours about college, music, memories of my mom when she was a girl. He told me things I'd never heard before, things that made me realize she hadn't always been this bitter, this exhausted, this hard. She used to write poetry, he told me one afternoon. She had journals full of it. Your grandma used to say she had a soul too big for her chest. I didn't recognize that version of her, but maybe she didn't either anymore. Over the next few weeks, I started building something like a real life. I applied to 4 colleges, 2 out of state, 1 across the country. The idea of being far away, somewhere no one knew me as Isla's sister, was thrilling. I reconnected with Evan, the friend who'd taken me to see Spider-Man. When I told him everything, he didn't say much, just looked at me and said, "You're a badass, you know that?" And then hugged me so tight I forgot what loneliness felt like for a minute. But even with the new peace, the fallout from my parents' lies kept rippling outward. My cousin Julian, furious over the stolen money, started pulling financial records. He was the type who never let things go. Within a week, he discovered my parents had been getting monthly contributions from 6 different relatives. Each told a different version of the same lie. The caretaker needed a raise, the insurance had lapsed, Isla needed new medications. They'd pocketed thousands, maybe more. When the family confronted them, it exploded. A massive video call turned screaming match. My parents tried to blame stress, confusion, miscommunication, but nobody bought it anymore. Grandpa told them if they didn't come clean and return the money, he'd go to a lawyer. Uncle Marco backed them up, Aunt Jen too. My parents stopped replying after that. And yet, a week later, my mom showed up at Grandpa's front door. She looked tired, smaller, like the anger that used to fuel her had burned out, leaving only the ashes behind. "I'm not here to fight," she said. Grandpa let her in, but stood nearby like a silent wall behind me. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, her hands shaking. "I read your speech," she said quietly. "The one you gave at school. Your teacher sent it to me." I hadn't known that. I braced myself. "You were right," she whispered. "About everything." She paused. "I wasn't just parenting Isla. I was grieving her. And somewhere along the line, I started resenting you for being normal, for being healthy. And instead of protecting you, I used you." The silence that followed felt heavier than any yelling we'd ever done. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she added. I don't know. I wanted you to know I see it now. All of it." I didn't respond right away. I didn't trust myself to. Finally, I said, "You didn't lose Isla. You lost yourself. And you used me as a life raft." Her lips quivered. "I know." That was the first honest conversation we'd had in years. It didn't fix things, it didn't erase anything, but it was real. And I think we both needed that more than we realized. It's been 2 months since I left, and I still wake up some mornings half expecting to hear Isla screaming through the walls or my mom banging on my door because I missed her 4 a.m. bottle feeding. But then I hear birds outside, Grandpa making toast, the creak of his rocking chair, and I remember I'm safe, I'm free. I've gotten letters from Isla, or, well, scribbles and stickers on paper that my mom says Isla insisted on sending. I keep everyone. They mean more than I can explain. Because despite everything, I never stopped loving her. The person I was angry at was never Isla. It was the version of me I was forced to become. My college applications were all accepted, every single one. I've chosen a school on the coast, far away, where nobody knows my name. I picked creative writing as my major, not business, not medicine, not anything practical for taking care of someone else's future, because for the first time, I'm building my own. My family, my real family, the ones who stepped up when everything crumbled, have rallied behind me. Aunt Jen started a college fund in my name. Uncle Marco taught me how to track spending and build credit. Grandpa's already planning a road trip to help me move into my dorm. It's like everyone realized at once how badly they'd underestimated my silence all these years. And yet, with all this joy, there's a weight that hasn't completely lifted. I've barely spoken to my dad since the night I confronted him. He called once, didn't apologize, just asked when I'd be home. I told him I am home. That didn't go over well, but I don't regret it. Leaving my parents felt like cutting a rope that had been choking me for so long, I forgot what air felt like. And in its place, I found something unexpected, a future. I'm still learning how to be someone who isn't constantly on edge, still catching myself apologizing for taking up space, still fighting the guilt that creeps in when I say no. But I'm trying. Some nights, Grandpa and I sit on the porch with Coco, and he tells me stories about my grandma, how she refused to wear shoes in the house, how she'd sing lullabies to the dog when she was sad, how she once threw a ceramic bowl at the neighbor for stealing her tomatoes. He tells me that my laugh sounds like hers, that she would have loved me. I think I would have loved her too. As for Isla, I don't know what the future holds. I still dream about her. Sometimes she's 5 again, spinning in circles in the backyard. Other times she's my age, walking beside me on a college campus I don't recognize. I wake up with tears on my cheeks either way. I hope she's okay. And maybe one day, when I'm strong enough, I'll find a way to build a relationship with her that isn't built on sacrifice. Something real, something where both of us get to be whole. Because I do love her, and I always will. But I love me too. And for the first time, I'm letting that love matter. So here I am, 18, heart bruised but beating, future unwritten but finally mine. This is my beginning, my story. Not as a caretaker, not as a shadow, not as a backup plan. Just as me. The story may be over, but the conversation is just getting started. Drop a comment below. We read every single one. Leave a like if this story hit you deep. Subscribe so you don't miss more real-life drama and powerful confessions. Share this video with someone who needs to know they're not alone. This is Fam Stories, where we say what others stay silent about. See you in the next story.